All right, guys, you're putting all that knowledge you've been learning in this unit together right now. It's coming here. It's coming out right now when we do equations of perpendicular bisectors. Now, you've drawn constructions of perpendicular bisectors, but let's jog the memory a little bit. What is a perpendicular bisector? Well, let's remember what this word means. So perpendicular is when lines intersect to make 90-degree angles. All right, well, let's learn lines intersect to make 90-degree angles. In a bisector, remember, that means to cut in half. All right, that's something that cuts another thing in half. So a perpendicular bisector is a line that intersects to make 90-degree angles, and it cuts the line in half, doing both. So to be able to write the equation, there's probably two key pieces of information I'm going to need to first. And first, to find the line that is perpendicular to this line, if you think back from our last lessons, we're going to have to know the slope of the original line, right? Slope of the original line. Now, if I know the slope, I can find the perpendicular slope and get that taken care of. Now, to make sure it goes through the middle, I would probably have to find what? Now, the middle is right about here. Well, actually, it's probably a little more up. What would I have to know to make sure it goes to the middle? Now, think back, you learned it. You probably have to know the midpoint. And we know how to do that too. So to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector, really all we're doing is finding a line that's perpendicular to this line, which we know how to do, and it has to go through the midpoint. So if we can find the slope of the original and the midpoint, we're good to go. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to write the equation line that is the perpendicular bisector of the line segment having endpoints 6, -1 and -2, 1. So the first thing we're going to start off by doing is finding the midpoint, because we know it has to go through that. So remember, if we do midpoint, this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and we just plug our things in. So the midpoint, and that's our large M, is going to be 6 plus -2 over 2, comma, -1 plus 1 over 2. We'll put these in your calculator. This gives us 4 over 2, which divides into 2. So your midpoint's going to be 2 when we put that in the calculator. And this -1 plus 1, 0, divided by 2 is 0. So our midpoint is 2, 0. All right, now that we got our midpoint, we should probably find the slope of the original line. So once again, we're going to use these points to find the slope. So our small m, remember small m means slope, is going to be y2 minus y1. So that's 1 minus -1 over x2 minus x1, -2 minus 6. And when we do this math out, let's see, 1 minus -1 is 2. -2 minus 6 is -8. And so that gives us -1/4. So our slope is m equals -1 over 4. So to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector, we know two things. One, it's going to go through the midpoint. All right, so it's going to go through 2, 0. And we know the slope is going to have to be perpendicular to -1/4. Okay, so the slope is going to have to be perpendicular to -1/4. Okay, and so let's put little notes here. Let's say m is equal to -1/4. That's our original line. So we just have to do what before. How do we find the perpendicular line that goes through this point and is perpendicular to this line? Well, first let's state the perpendicular slope. I'm going to call this MP. The perpendicular slope is the opposite reciprocal, which is just 4. Now we're going to do y equals mx plus b. And we're going to plug in the information we know. We know it's going to have to go through this point, so it has a y of 0 equals a slope of 4. We're going to put our m in right here, times x, which is 2, plus b. And we're solving for b. So I just want to make clear what I'm doing. I'm plugging the midpoint in for my y and x, and I'm plugging my perpendicular slope in for m. All right? That's all I did. We're solving for b to get the y-intercept. So we get 0 equals 8 plus b. To solve for b, we have to subtract 8 from both sides. 0 minus 8 is just negative 8, and that is equal to b. So finally, what we're going to have to do is write our final equation of the perpendicular bisector, and that's just y equals, we know it has a slope of 4, minus, so 4x minus 8, and that's our b. That's it. Let's see if that even worked, though, because I think it's a good thing to check. So we have 2 points, 6, negative 1, and negative 2, 1. So 6, negative 1, and negative 2, 1. So first, let's start with graphing them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, negative 1, and negative 2, 1. All right, let's draw our line to connect these. Now let's see if what we draw here is our perpendicular bisector. First thing, let's graph our midpoint. Remember that was 2, 0, so that's right here, and that does look like the midpoint. Looks like we're doing some stuff right. And the equation of our line is y equals 4x minus 8. That's our perpendicular bisector. So let's see if when we graph it, if we get the perpendicular bisector. So let's start at negative 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess it's right here. And the slope is 4. So it's up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. And then up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Hey, look, that worked. So when we draw our line, it goes through these points. Now let's do this line in blue, just so we can really see it. And look at that. Oh, when we do this line, sure enough, if you look at it, 1, it does go through the middle, so we know it is a bisector, and that means that this is congruent to this, if you remember. And 2, on top of that, sorry, I'm going to put arrows on the end of mine, good habits. And on top of that, this does look like a 90-degree angle. So this would be the perpendicular bisector. We did it perfectly. All right, let's try this one more time. What we're trying to do is write the equation of line. That's the perpendicular bisector. Those are our key words. Perpendicular bisector of the line segment having endpoints negative 2, 5 and 2, 3. So first, once again, we're going to start by finding the midpoint. So let's label this guy for us. And I'm just going to remove that. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So m equals x1 is negative 2, our x2 is 2 plus 2, over 2, comma, y2 plus y1, y1 plus y2 over 2. So let's see, our midpoint's going to be negative 2 plus 2 is 0, 0 divided by 2 is 0, and 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's our midpoint, 0, 4. Now the slope, let's plug in our information again. y2 is 3, y1 is 5, x2 is 2, x1 is negative 2. Oh, negative 2. When we plug that in, 3 minus 5 is negative 2, 2 minus negative 3 minus 5 is negative 2, 2 minus negative 2 is 4. This reduces to negative 1/2. Okay. Now we want to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector. And remember, the perpendicular bisector is going to go through the midpoint of 0, 4. So we know it goes through this point. And it's going to have a slope perpendicular to negative 1/2. So let's start by writing our equation. We know our new slope is going to have, our perpendicular slope is going to have a slope of, it's the opposite reciprocal, 2. We start by writing our new equation, y equals mx plus b, right? It's going to go into this form, and we're going to plug in our values for y, m, and x. So our y is 4, right? We're using our midpoint. We know it has to go through the midpoint, so it's going to be 4 equals. We have an m of 2, and the x is 0. Once again, I get the slope from this number, and I'm getting my x and y from these numbers. This is my x, this is my y. And plus b. B is what we are solving for. Solve for me. And a little smiley face. Okay, we get 4 equals 2 times 0, which is 0 plus b. Well, 0 plus b, there's nothing left to do because 0 plus b is just 0. I mean, just b. So, and that is done. Okay, Now, to find out the equation, we don't just stop at b. We're going to write our final equation. The perpendicular bisector, the equation is going to be y equals, well, it has a slope of 2, so 2x, plus, and we have our b right here, 4. And where did I get that 2 and 4? I got my 2 because that's what the slope has to be for it to be perpendicular, and I got my b over here, and we solved for that earlier. So 2x plus 4. Awesome. Let's see if this even works though. So once again, let's graph it just to check, and that's just good habits. Negative 2, 5, and 2, 3. So we're going to graph negative 2, 5, and points 2, 3. So negative 2, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right here. And 2, 3. 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. All right. Let's draw our line. Goes from here to here. Great. All right, our midpoint was 0, 4, which sure enough, that does look like the midpoint again, right there. So let's see if our equation worked. We know it's y equals 2x plus 4. So our y intercept is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right here. And our next has a slope of 2, so it's up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Let's put the line through that. And boom. Let me just mess with this a little bit. And look, once again, does that look like, first of all, does it go through the midpoint? Yes. All right. Our y equals 2x plus 4. This does go through the midpoint. Awesome. Right there. Goes through the midpoint. Goes through midpoint. And does it have a slope? And does it create 90-degree angles? Sure enough, it looks like a T. We did it. Awesome, it worked. Now, before I let you guys go, because it's only 2 examples in this unit, I just want to show you guys what might look wrong, you know, like, because when you check your answers, you want to see if everything looks right. Now, let's say you got this, right? This is your line, and you're trying to find the perpendicular bisector of it. If, when you graph your equation, it looks something like this, is that the perpendicular bisector? No, because it doesn't look like a 90-degree angle. So you know you might have done something wrong. A perpendicular bisector has to create 90-degree angles and has to go through the midpoint. Another example of that would be, let's say we drew, this is your original line, all right? And it goes through here. Now, yes, it's perpendicular, but is this the bisector? No, so that is not going to be the equation of your perpendicular bisector. Okay guys, so just to repeat the process one more time, find the midpoint, find the slope, and then you want to write the equation that goes through the midpoint and has a perpendicular slope of your original line. And if you follow those steps, you will be awesome, possum, my lawsome. Alright guys, well done, and drink all your milk, do your homework, be good to your parents, and look people in the eye when you shake their hand, because it's just good habits. Alright, peace.